There is a profound reason why your mind cannot stop thinking about someone who has already moved on, someone who does not respond as they used to, someone who occupies your thoughts even when you try to move on. Taoism does not call this love. It calls it internal disharmony. When the mind clings to a person, it is not really trying to hold on to the other person. It is trying to restore a center that has been lost. In Taoism, the problem is never the object of attachment. The problem is the inner emptiness that arose when you began to revolve around something external. Thinking too much about someone is not a sign of spiritual connection, destiny, or an invisible bond. It is a sign of excessive internal movement, excess yang in the mind. The mind speeds up because you have left the natural flow, and whenever that happens, thinking becomes an attempt to control. You think to predict, you think to correct, you think to avoid future pain. But the more you think, the further you get from the peace you're looking for. Taoism teaches something counterintuitive. The mind only calms down when it stops trying to solve what's not under its control. In Taoist philosophy, everything follows the principle of Wu Wei. The right action is the one that doesn't force. True movement comes from harmony, not anxiety. When you can't stop thinking about someone, you are in inverted Wu Wei. You are trying to act internally to fix something external. This creates a cycle. Thought generates tension. Tension generates more thought, and the person becomes the central symbol of that tension. But Taoism does not tell you to fight against thought, nor does it tell you to replace it with positive affirmations. He commands something more difficult: return to the center. In Tao, everything that moves away from the center begins to oscillate. An obsessive mind is a mind that is off-center, and as long as you are off-center, anyone can become an emotional anchor. So it doesn't matter if it's an ex, someone you never had, or someone who changed their behavior. The pattern is the same. The mind creates stories to justify attachment, but the body is already out of balance before the story exists. There is an ancient Taoist metaphor that explains this clearly. Imagine a calm lake. When the water is still, it reflects everything clearly. Mountains, sky, trees. But when someone starts throwing stones into the lake, the surface becomes agitated. The images become distorted. Nothing can be seen clearly. Thinking too much about someone is like continuously throwing stones into your own water. Every memory, every assumption, every imagined scenario. You think you are trying to understand the situation. In fact, you are preventing any real understanding. The Tao does not teach you to stop the lake by force. It teaches you to stop throwing stones. And the biggest stone you throw is the need for results. You want to know if the person will come back, if they feel the same way, if they still think about you. This need creates constant ripples. Here is the Taoist secret that almost no one applies. The mind does not calm down when you forget someone. It calms down when you stop using that person as a reference for your inner stability. As long as your well-being depends on a response, a message, or a sign, the thinking will continue. Taoism calls this dependence on the external. And all dependence on the external creates suffering, not because the external is wrong, but because it is impermanent. The mind that anchors itself in the impermanent never rests. That is why the Tao does not speak of detachment as rejection. It speaks of detachment as realignment. You don't need to expel that person from your mind. You need to stop orbiting them. There is a simple question that Taoism would use here. Where is your center now? If the answer involves another person, you already know the problem. The center is never outside. It never has been. When you refocus, something curious happens. Thoughts lose their power effortlessly, not because you fought them, but because they lost their function. Obsessive thoughts exist to try to protect something unstable. When stability returns, they are no longer necessary. Taoism does not teach the mind to forget. It teaches the being to stabilize itself. Now comes the most counterintuitive part. When you stop thinking obsessively about someone, that person often reappears. Not by magic, not by strategy, but because the energetic dynamic has changed. In Taoism, when you stop pulling, the rope relaxes. When you release the tension, the flow reorganizes itself. People sense when you no longer need them to feel whole, and that changes everything. But be careful. This should not be done to provoke a return. If you do it with that intention, you remain trapped. The Tao does not respond to manipulation. It responds to genuine harmony. So how do you stop thinking about someone you can't let go of? First, stop trying to stop. Second, observe where your energy is invested. Is it in the present or in imaginary scenarios? Third, return to the body. Taoism always begins with the body, not the mind. Deep breathing, slow movement, contact with the present moment. When the body slows down, the mind follows, not out of obedience, but as a natural consequence. The biggest mistake people make is trying to solve this solely on a mental level. They analyze, they reread messages, they search for hidden meaning. Taoism would say that this is like trying to straighten water with your hands. The more you stir it, the cloudier it gets. Clarity does not come from excessive analysis. It comes from inner silence. And silence is not the absence of sound. It is the absence of need. When you truly apply this teaching, something changes profoundly. You may still remember the person, but the memory does not hurt. It does not pull. It does not demand. It passes like a cloud, and that is freedom. Not freedom to love, but freedom from dependence. The Tao does not remove the feeling. It removes the prison. If there is one thing you should take away from this teaching, it is this. You are not thinking too much because you love too much. You are thinking too much because you have lost your center, and the way back is not to fight against thinking. It is to return to yourself. When you return to the Tao, everything that is not essential dissolves on its own, without effort, without drama, without loss. The mind quiets not when it finds answers, but when it stops asking questions that never had control. This is the Taoist secret to stop thinking about someone you can't let go of. Don't let go of the person, but let go of the need. And when the need goes away, peace remains. Subscribe to this channel and let's follow the natural flow of life together.